Hi everyone, Pierre Camus, the Roto Chef here with RotoBaller to help you decide who to start, who to sit for week one of the NFL season. That's right, fantasy football is finally back, thank God. So Thursday night had some exciting action. I don't think we'll see quite that many passes thrown in every game this weekend. Just going to take a wild guess there. Running backs are the lifeblood of fantasy teams a lot of times. Some teams will actually depend on the running game, so will your fantasy team. Let's decide who are some players besides the obvious guys who maybe you should consider putting in or taking out of your lineup. So I'm not going to talk about the obvious top 10, 12 guys that you're going to put in no matter what the matchup is. And of course, we're not going to mention the guys who are the fringes who don't even deserve mention. Just a little hint here, don't put Le'Veon Bell in your lineup this week, probably ever this season. But for now, let's talk about some of those guys. You're kind of on the fence there, that RB3 flex consideration. So let's start with Kareem Hunt. Well, for most leagues, he is going to be an every week start, but a lot of people kind of worried the fact that might get scripted out of this game because, well, they're playing the Chiefs, and the Chiefs tend to score a lot of points, and so you think, well, that is not good for a running back. But Kareem Hunt, of course, the exception here because a lot of his damage does come through the air. Nick Chubb is the primary runner. Don't sit Nick Chubb either, by the way. You shouldn't release it. Nick Chubb for any matchup, it doesn't matter. He can break out a long run at any time. But Kareem Hunt is a guy who is going to be involved as a pass catcher. We know this going against his former team. I don't know if that really matters. But the fact is that you know that the Chiefs will be probably putting up plenty of points. Kareem Hunt will get involved more in the third downs and the pass catching role. I do expect Kansas City to have a lead in this game. But even besides that, Kareem Hunt is always involved. He and Chubb have a pretty close snap share. So really, Kareem Hunt is the guy that kind of doesn't get scripted out of most games. But in this case, do not worry. Keep him in your lineup. Guy I don't want to start this week, and that is Javonte Williams, which if you follow what I've been writing all offseason, might sound odd because I'm a huge Javonte Williams stan. He's a guy I really think could be a league winner and break out this year, but not in week one. So look, facing the Giants, that's not the most intimidating defense, but they're at least solid in the front seven, not something to be scared of in most cases. But in this case, it's not just the matchup itself, but the fact is Melvin Gordon is still there. Melvin Gordon is healthy. I do expect early in the season, especially the season opener, Melvin Gordon to be the lead back. Javonte Williams will get his chances. He's going to have to earn the trust and the role. Look at what happened with all these rookie running backs last year. Even the guys who did have good seasons in the end, like Jonathan Taylor, it took him a long time, 10 weeks to really get going. Okay, it just takes time. I know last year was kind of a weird year with missing a lot of the in-person stuff with training camp. It's still, things are not completely back to normal, even if they are in the training camp situation. Remember, only 3 preseason games, not a lot of action for a lot of these players. It's going to take time. I do expect Williams' touches to be limited, and for opportunity alone, I just don't think he's worth starting. He's very risky here. Maybe he breaks off a long run or gets a touchdown, but again, that's a big if. So I would say best to keep him on your bench if you can afford to. Now, Raheem Mostert is also a guy in a committee here. I love Trey Sermon, but again, more so for the second half of the year. I think eventually the job is his. Right now, Mostert is still seemingly healthy. That little back scare from a couple weeks ago, I guess, was nothing. If Mostert's healthy, he's technically the lead back. This will always be a committee, but he's probably going to get most of the carries. And, okay, going against Detroit, pretty much going to be a must start for most running backs in that situation. Lions gave up the 4th most rushing yards out of all teams last year, and their defense really won't be much better. This is a team expected to finish in the bottom of the standings, not just in their division, but basically the entire league. So this could be very favorable game script. Mostert is a big play waiting to happen. You've got to roll him out this week for sure. James Conner, not so much. So that Arizona-Tennessee game, you want a lot of exposure to in general because it should be a very high-scoring game. The problem is, well, I do think that the Titans offense is actually better than the Arizona offense at this point just because, well, the Titans have Derrick Henry and Arizona has James Conner. Now, Conner could be a decent back this season. We know we saw how much volume Kenyon Drake got last year, surprising to many. Conner kind of will fill that role. Chase Edmonds is the pass-catching back. He'll get mixed in here and there. But in this case, Conner really doesn't have that floor that you want for a running back 2 or 3 or flex play because he's really not going to be involved at all as a pass catcher. That's not his strength. And so if this game gets out of hand in any way, or if Arizona finds himself needing to catch up, that they might get pass happy too. I don't see Connor really doing a whole lot. They're going to work him in slowly as well. It's a guy who was missing a lot of time last year. So I want to see it before I really believe it with Connor. He's kind of a fringy start anyways, but in this case, again, going against Tennessee, who reportedly this preseason, their defense has looked a lot better than last year, and last year was pretty soft, but they could be improved with guys like Bud Dupree rushing the passer here. So I think let's just kind of wait and see with Connor, not somebody that I feel comfortable starting if I did have him. All right, what about a Mostert? Well, a lot of talk about Baltimore and what's going on there. They've added pretty much every veteran free agent running back that was available. I'm sure they're getting Adrian Peterson on the horn pretty soon here. But Tyson Williams is still the guy. Why? Because J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, and Justice Hill somehow all season-ending injuries. And so, well, the next guy up is Tyson Williams. Will Le'Veon Bell eventually take that job? Maybe. Latavius Murray, he was pretty much a salary cap casualty there. The Saints were way over, and that's why they had to make a lot of moves and didn't sign anybody new. So Murray, kind of replaceable with Tony Jones Jr. being almost as good and a lot younger. So Murray at least is ready because he's somebody who has been playing the preseason. He can jump right in there, but again, he just joined the team like 2 days ago. He's not necessarily going to be getting a full workload. Williams is the only running back who has been there all preseason, and they've seen him and they know him. So I do expect him to get the biggest share by far of carries on a team that's going to run the ball a lot against a mediocre, if not bad, Raiders defense. So long term, yeah, there's a little bit of doubt about Williams just because of all those veterans they did add. Let's not forget Devontae Freeman, although I don't really expect him to be with the team much longer now that they got Murray. But Williams, for now, is actually a really solid start this week, so don't be afraid to fire him up, even over guys like I've already mentioned, like Connor, that you may have drafted. One more start here for you. Mike Davis, a lot of you who did select him, it was as your RB2, kind of at a discount if you waited till maybe the 5th round to get your RB2, which is a smart idea based on how things are going these days. So Davis basically has no competition for touches. Wayne Gallman was just signed. Again, he's still learning the playbook and getting used to the environment. So he'll be there because he's literally the only other running back on the roster. The Falcons got rid of everybody else. So Davis is going to be the guy. Now, against the Eagles, it's just kind of an okay matchup. But again, just volume alone, this is always what you want to go for when you're talking about running backs. You want to go after the guy who's going to get the touches and the snaps. And it's Davis, and he's going to be the pass catching back and the early down back and the goal line back and everything. Not that I'm super impressed with Atlanta's offense this year, but in general, if you want a guy who is going to be kind of close to a workhorse back early on, it's actually going to be Mike Davis, at least for now. So you definitely can fire him up in this matchup. I expect that to be kind of a high-scoring game, not in a both offenses are really good kind of way, but more in the both defenses are not that great kind of way. So it could get ugly good for fantasy. And then finally, sit Michael Carter. There was some excitement, about him coming out of the draft, and the Jets needed a running back, and they got him. It's kind of died down just because he hasn't really flashed in the preseason. A little disappointing, a little slow to catch on. And honestly, the best running back in that group has been Ty Johnson. But he's not even the starter. It's going to be Tevin Coleman, the veteran, who did come from San Francisco, where head coach Robert Saleh was. So Coleman's going to be the starter. Johnson's probably being the next guy up. Carter might not see a lot of action initially. There's still hope, again, for the second half. Maybe he surges and comes on, injuries happen and whatnot. But for week 1, you can leave him on your bench pretty much. There's not a lot of incentive to start him. Again, not about the matchup here. Carolina is just okay defensively, but I just don't see Carter getting a lot of touches. And if he does, we don't really know what he's going to do with them because he didn't really shine a whole lot throughout training camp. All right, so those are my running back must starts and sits. Of course, there's plenty more guys to talk about. Check out RotoBaller.com and look at our week 1 rankings constantly updated so you can know who should be in your lineup to help you win.